So we are going to get going. We're going to start with an agenda overview. I'm going to do a brief introduction into Sustainable Duke. That is the Office of Sustainability for Duke University. We're then going to jump into Green Home Office, which I know is a really great topic that people are interested in. We'll then go to sustainability and wellness and talk about the sustainability intersections. And then I really do hope that you can participate in the question and answer section. If I'm unable to answer a question fully, I will go back and speak with my office to collect more information so that we can provide you with a resource email after this, which will include the presentation, additional resources, as well as a recorded session of this presentation that may take a few days to get back to us from Zoom, but I hope that you'll enjoy it or share it with others who weren't able to attend today. So who is Sustainable Duke? Duke University has a carbon neutrality goal, and the Office of Sustainability is here to help facilitate that goal. We have a mission to educate and empower the Duke community to create a more sustainable future through social, economic, environmental change on our campus and beyond. We have the Campus Sustainability Central Office, so that is who you're interacting with today. We have the Duke Carbon Offsets Initiative and the Duke Campus Farm. So with Sustainable Duke in the Central Office, I work with the central office. I've been with Duke for about 4 years. Just in case you don't know me personally, my name is Rebecca Hoffler. I'm the program coordinator, and I really enjoy education and outreach, which is why I'm here facilitating this workshop with you today. It's one of the many programs that we do offer. Throughout the normal school year, and when things do resume normal operations, we do offer project and programming consultation. Just last year, we were able to help the Pratt School of Engineering and the Duke School of Nursing with their own sustainability engagement plan, which was to help facilitate their own sustainability goals specific to their school. We also are in charge with implementing Duke's Sustainability Strategic Plan. Now, this is the roadmap to help guide us to carbon neutrality by 2024. And then, of course, there are curricular and co-curricular opportunities. Most specifically, we have a great relationship with Fast Connections and helping students research sustainability, energy, and other environmental programs related to their course. The Duke Carbon Offsets Initiative. Now, this office is incredible. This is the only university-based offset group in the entire country. So Duke actually has a specific office that is charged with creating carbon offsets projects locally. So we are tasked with creating carbon offset projects that have a societal co-benefit, economical co-benefit, and environmental co-benefit. This is intentional. Duke University, in a technical way, could be carbon neutral tomorrow. There is a way to buy energy credits, carbon credits from existing markets, but Duke University was really intentional with this climate neutrality goal, in that if we were going to invest in carbon offsets, we were going to do so locally in Durham and in North Carolina, with the mission of actually creating local jobs, educational opportunities, and real environmental benefits local to our community. And then we have the Duke Campus Farm. So these three offices are what really encompass Sustainable Duke at Duke University. And the Duke Campus Farm is a 1-acre working and educational facility. It is about 4 to 5 miles away from Duke's main campus, but it is still in Durham. They really operate with the mission to stimulate conversations around food policy and food equity in the Triangle. It is also a working farm. They have a community-supported agriculture program during normal operations. Food grown at the farm usually goes to the dining halls, where you can see it featured at certain campus vendors. And then this summer, they've really focused on actually donating a lot of the food. They've partnered with a medical school group called Root Causes that actually participates in what we call a vegetable prescription program. So in order to help increase the health outcomes of certain patients who are food insecure, they are actually prescribed vegetables as a part of their health regimen, and the Duke Campus Farm actually provides a lot of those vegetables. It's also a very beautiful place. You can check them out on Instagram to see some of the beautiful photos. Just a quick history about sustainability at Duke. Back in 2003, this was really the cusp of a lot of sustainability programs at higher education institutions. A lot of students actually began to see the benefits of adopting LEED policies and adopting those building programs. It then led to the hiring of the first sustainability staff. Again, this was very student advocated and led. This led to the signing of the American College and University President's Climate Commitment, the ACU-PCC, in 2007, which was a group of college and university presidents who came together to say that we would tackle climate change on our campus. And that commitment was voluntary. So when Duke University voluntarily signed that commitment, it led to the carbon neutrality goal. And so in 2009, the Climate Action Plan was adopted, and then the Sustainability Strategic Plan was created to help create that roadmap to a carbon neutrality goal in 2024. It's actually, if I can go back, it's really exciting because their first year students at Duke this year are actually the class of carbon neutrality. They will graduate the year that Duke University goes carbon neutral. And I'm really excited to see the kind of community that we can cultivate together for them around this goal. So for Duke University, in order to get to a carbon neutrality goal, we had to get a baseline of our emissions. So back in 2007, all the different sectors at Duke, transportation, waste, energy, water, all came together to create this baseline of emissions. So they inventoried all the existing operations of Duke to actually quantify it into a number. And in 2007, we actually started out around 350,000 tons of carbon each year. And you can see that we've had this consistent reduction of energy emissions, of carbon emissions. There are years that we do experience an uptick. So you can actually see in 2019, there was a 6% increase compared to 2018. And so some of the reasons are not necessarily negative. We do want to ensure that Duke as a university is expanding capacity-wise. So new building construction on campus can lead to more emissions. There are also other things. So with transportation, there's improved estimation of average commuting distance. So this is actually a very in-depth and large survey that Parking and Transportation sends out each year. And this actually helps gauge where faculty, where staff are living in the triangle and beyond, so that we can calculate and count their emissions in our transportation sector. I'm sure, like all other offices, we're going to see a massive reduction in travel this year due to COVID-19 pandemic. So you'll see in 2019, about $650,000 was spent more on air travel in comparison to 2018. And currently the university facilities, energy, transportation, all the players in those sectors are calculating their emissions from 2019 for fiscal year 20. So we will actually, in the next month or two, get more numbers on our total emissions in a COVID reality. And I think it's going to be pretty striking to see a possible large reduction in not only energy, but transportation emissions. So talking about Green Home Office, I think this transition into understanding that we are no longer working on campus and we are now working at home is a good transition to start talking about how can we, instead of taking the energy we were using in our home offices and just dispersing it to the energy in our work offices and dispersing it to our home offices, how can we reduce the energy we're using in our home? Economically, we find that people are more sensitive and aware of the energy that they use when they pay for it. This is called the pain of purchase. And so I know that personally, I have been much more cognizant of the energy I'm using throughout my workday because I'm the one paying the electricity bill at home. So going over some general tips, we always encourage turning off overhead lights. I can't see my screen, but I hope you guys can see that I don't have my overhead light on right now. I'm using 2 desk lights, and these are all connected. My computer, my monitor, my desk lamps are connected to a power strip. And using a power strip is really helpful. There's something to be said about the convenience of sustainability at home. I don't know how many of you can relate to this, but it's my sustainability sin, so I'll air it for everyone. But at the office, my power strip, even though all my electronics were plugged into one, it was located in a very inconvenient location. It was all the way under my desk in the corner where it connected to the actual outlet. And so I found myself at the end of the day not actually going in and turning off my power strip. I would shut down my computer, but I wouldn't crawl under my desk in my work clothes to turn off this power strip. And so the convenience of working from home is actually tailoring the way that you want to be sustainable that is convenient for you. And so I have my power strip not only handily, like readily accessible, they actually have it plugged into this little piece of technology called Zap. And I'll send the link out for this in the additional resources that we provide after this webinar. But basically my outlet, my power strip is not plugged into the outlet. It's plugged into a plug that is plugged into the outlet. And this remote controls the plug that's in the outlet. So when I press off, I turn off the plug that's in the outlet, which turns off the entire power strip. And it is outrageously satisfying at the end of the day to press one button and see all my computer, my lamps turn off at once and know that I'm saving a lot of energy. At home, we still want everyone to be cognizant of computer settings. So going to standby mode after 5 minutes and hibernate and sleep mode after 10 will help to save and conserve energy on your battery. We know that screensavers do not actually save energy. It's pretty self-explanatory. They actually save the screens. Back when computers were first coming online, computer engineers were finding that the longer one screen was on the screen, it would actually create an actual echo of that image on the screen. So it was actually burning an image into the screen. So that's why screensavers were created, to actually continuously change the image to preserve the actual screen of the computer. Adjusting computer settings. It is also true that even though we are home, Duke OIT will still do updates on our computers, and it is important that you do talk to your OIT rep and talk and ask, when are updates scheduled for my department? Because if you can plan out when scheduled updates are happening, you can leave your computers on for the night, and then updates will still take place. And then that way, you know, every other time that the update is not happening, you can turn your computer off at the end of the day. Another tip for greening the home office. I wonder if everyone can see clearly how dark my room actually is right now. So I am using curtains to block the light coming in from the window that I have. It's a passive cooling technique, and passive cooling is a form of design instead of energy to cool something. So I'm using curtains to actually physically block the thermal heat from the sun to come into my room so that I maintain a cooler temperature throughout the day. This is very different than an active cooling system. Active cooling is your HVAC system, your air conditioning. So that is a use of energy to cool something. So inputting energy into a system to get a result. Whereas passive cooling is the use of design instead of energy in a system to still get a result that you desire. If you can see the image here, this is actually a rendering of the Duke Smart Home. So this is a great example of passive design in a building to reduce energy consumption. So one thing that they do is actually plant in front of ground floor windows. And this is something, if you have a ground floor window that's available, you can plant in front of it as well. The whole point of planting in front of a ground floor window is because in the summer months, when you have grapes, for example, the grape leaves will grow because of the sun. And then that's actually a form of passive cooling because it'll block thermal heat from coming into the window. In the winter, when those leaves die, you'll actually have available space for thermal energy to come into the window to help maintain a warmer temperature in your home. So it's this really great use of design, natural design, of our natural environment to help our built environment maintain better temperatures. If you are in the conversation of roof renovations, sticking to the albedo effect, using a lighter colored roof to reflect heat will help maintain a cooler temperature in your home. So the albedo effect, we mostly see this in the Arctic. So we use this when we talk about ice caps and melting. So when solar energy comes into the ice caps and heats up the ice, it melts into blue water. And that darker color will actually not reflect heat, it will absorb it. And then that creates kind of this snowball effect of heating with our ice caps, because the more melting we have, the more dark color we have, and the more that dark color is able to absorb thermal heat and exacerbate that system. So if we can use that as an example to implement in our own homes and use less energy, we can think about that larger connection to the natural ecosystems that we are trying to protect. One example of using passive design is actually setting up your home office in the basement. So in past workshops, I ask, you guys have done this when you registered for this conference or webinar, is to actually provide insights into what you are doing to maintain a cooler home in the summer. And some staff are actually setting up their offices in the basement specifically because it's cooler there and they don't have to run the AC during the daytime if they're working in that space, which I found to be a really good tip. Another tip for greening the home office is definitely, to keep exterior windows and doors closed when your space is being heated or cooled. A good technology tip for this is actually, it's a technology that I'll send the link to in the additional resources, but basically it's a sensor. And so the sensor goes on the wall and then you have another sensor on the window. And when you open the window, the sensor will sense that the window is open because it can't monitor that monitor. And then that will go to your smartphone. So if you have, say, teenagers in the house who do want that window to be open, but you do want to keep it shut when you're cooling the house, you'll actually be able to monitor that space on your smartphone. And I'll send out that link after this presentation. Of course, we're always hoping that you adjust the thermal settings to 76 degrees in the summer, 70 degrees in the winter. The closer your thermostat is to the outside temperature, the less work your HVAC system will do. And we know that maintaining a consistent temperature, rather than trying to adjust it every once in a while to very low, to very high, maintaining a temperature is much more energy efficient on your HVAC system. Because if it is set to 76 and it gets to 78 in your home, it only has to decrease by 1 temperature. But if it is 72 and your house is 76, or if you want it to be 72 and your house is 76, that's 4 degrees it has to decrease. And that's a lot of energy on your system. This isn't possible now because it's July, but in the fall months, we do hope that you do enjoy the fresh air. So turning off the HVAC system and opening the windows, even for 10 minutes, and this is this is a wellness and health tip, even opening a window for 10 minutes will allow fresh air to come in. And we know that in some homes, and the way that some homes are designed, that indoor air quality, especially if you are like me and you have a home full of very furry friends and lots of pets. So we have the issue of indoor air quality sometimes being worse than actually outdoor air quality. So when the fall months come and it is a little bit cooler, we do encourage you to open up the windows and get in that fresh air. Another thing that will really help, especially in your energy bill, is changing your HVAC filter regularly. And the more, say, pets that you have in the home, the more hair, the more dander, the more often you will want to change it. We have quite a few pets in my house and we change the filter every single month. And I think it's to be said that we could probably change it a little more frequently. But changing the HVAC filter is one of the best steps you can take to actually improve the efficiency of your entire HVAC system as a whole. One of my favorite tips for greening the home office is a little bit of a wellness tip. So I highly encourage you to start thinking about getting some plants for your space. There are many plants, just like, aloe and the snake plant especially, that can actually clean indoor air. But we really know that the mental health tip of being around plants is the real benefit that we're going for. So some easy plants that are actually very difficult to kill, the snake plant, the English ivy, a ZZ plant, which is the plant on the right in that image under the lamp, I believe. Aloe is always really helpful, and aloe is really incredible because that is a plant you can actually use for things like makeup removal or sunburns. So I highly suggest getting into aloe because it serves more than a purpose other than cleaning air. It can actually be a product you use in your daily life. And then philodendron. So that is just one of the most easiest plants to take care of. And it's one of the best and prettiest in my opinion. So with the cost of house plants, it's not something I want to impose on anybody. So we definitely encourage you to go onto Facebook because there's a Bull City swap. So if you have a cutting of a plant or you have a plant that you want to trade for another one, there's a whole community that will actually help you get the plant you want. Bull City Shares is also another page that you could probably acquire plants on. This page is actually really helpful for more than just plants. This page exists to help others. So you can go on and post, I'm in search of a house plant. And if someone has an extra and they want to help you, you will just receive that for free. It's not a site where you have to pay for anything. And it's also available Raleigh Plant People. So that's another, if you're not in Durham, so Bull City Plant Swap, Bull City Shares, those are Durham pages, but Raleigh Plant People is another page where plant swaps also take place. Something else to consider when we talk about reducing energy, reducing anything in the home office and in our home lifestyle. So one of the questions we had for registration was, how do you start living sustainably? What are some tips that will be introduced to you to help you get on to this paradigm? And reduction of consumption is something I talk about all the time. I really believe that the 3R campaign, right? Reduce, reuse, recycle, it should have been numbered. Most people back in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, when that campaign started, they actually went straight to recycling instead of reducing the consumption of their goods and then reusing reusable materials when possible. So one of the great things about this is the chart on the right is a great example of how to actually reduce the amount of waste in your home by following these steps. Prevention. So even before reduction, how can you look around in your space and actually analyze things? How can you say, how can I prevent, when this product runs out, actually needing to buy another disposable item? So I'm doing this in my bathroom actually. So I'm doing a one product challenge. It's not an official challenge, it's just something that I'm doing. So when I run out of my Q-tips, instead of buying another disposable box, I actually bought reusable Q-tips. And this was really exciting because now I don't need to buy Q-tips ever again. I can just clean the Q-tips that I do have and reuse them. Another example is when I run out of hair conditioner, I'm actually going to go to the Fillery in Durham to get a sustainable hair conditioner instead of a disposable plastic bottle. Another great paradigm to participate in is what we call the flexitarian diet. When we talk about veganism or plant-based diets, it can be very off-putting for some people who are not in that mindset to participate if they're told you have to be plant-based, you have to be vegan. We never find that that kind of language really works. What we do try to encourage is more of a flexitarian approach. So how can you be flexible when educating on these issues? So with a flexitarian diet, we encourage changing from red meat consumption to a lower carbon meat choice. So say to chicken or turkey or some other lower carbon meat option. Another great way to frame this is to actually participate locally. So if you do want to have a meat option as a dinner for that you're planning next week, could you maybe go to the farmer's market and get chicken or something from a local farmer? So not only framing it as it's a flexitarian approach, but it's also something that you can do to support your local economy and support your local farmer is something that I think everyone can relate to. Another great tip is the 7 friends and each day one person's a vegan. Between the 7 of you, you actually have a full vegan, and that's a major reduction of carbon emissions through agriculture. So that is a great way to participate with friends and get other people involved. A great quote and a way to think about it is to, I wish I could find the chef who said this years ago when I learned about it, but don't make food that vegans like, make vegan food that everyone likes. And be really open to the possibility that you are actually going to like a plant-based meal because they actually taste very good, not gonna lie. Another great idea is to actually, now that we're all home, is to try home composting. And I'll send out a video that will show you how to make your own compost at home for about $18. So we use that, it's called bin composting, and it's a really accessible way for people to get involved, especially if you have children at home and they're looking for things to do in this new world that we live in. Composting is a great chore to participate in. To put it into perspective why composting is important, 40% of all food in the US is actually wasted. Only 5% of that 40% is composted. So we have about 35% of all the food that's wasted in America going to landfills, when really that's a reusable resource. That is still a valued resource that could have another purpose. And so that is definitely something in the chart on the right where we get to recycling and recovery. And then it doesn't need to be disposed of. It could actually be put back into the system in your garden, in your flower bed, to actually help reduce landfill space. We're going to transition to sustainability and wellness. So if you do have questions about greening the home office, just make a note of it and I'd be happy to answer them when we get to the Q&A session, and you'll be able to put it into the chat box. If you came in just after I announced this, we do have an audience question, and this is something that you can start to think about as we go through this next section. So how can the built environment facilitate the physical activity of citizens to promote healthier communities? And we're going to talk about the intersection of the physical space and our health in just a little bit. But keep that in mind, because if you have ideas, if you've seen examples in your community or others, I would love to hear about it. So the intersection between sustainability and wellness is something that I am very personally connected to. It is something that Duke is very personally committed to. And if you're not able to sustain your ability and sustain your own well-being, you're not going to be able to sustain others in the planet. So making sure that you take care of yourself so that you can take care of others is one of the best messages for sustainability and wellness. Resiliency is not only just about the environment or energy or the economy, it is about your personal resiliency. And so we always want to emphasize that you are the most sustainable source of power on the planet. And when you take care of yourself, you take care of your mind and your body and your soul, every day you wake up with the incredible ability to create change. So just like the 3 pillars of sustainability, economic health, environmental health, and societal health, they all have intersections. So the graph on the right is a really good example of how they all intersect, and nothing is ever really a one-off track or not related to the other. If you have a physical space, how does the environment relate to that physical space? Does the financial leaf play a role in accessing physical spaces? social health, occupational and emotional health. All these things relate to each other, and they are definitely part of one paradigm. So to improve your own sustainability and your own wellness, we really encourage that you utilize the alternative structure of work that we're all working within now. So taking walking meetings during a phone call outside of your home is something that we can all try. So we really appreciate the flexibility of working from home because we're actually able to go and take walking meetings in our own communities. And something that's really beneficial for walking meetings is that when it's in your own neighborhood, because we're not all waking up and going into the car to go to work, we're all staying put, we're all staying local. And if there's a neighbor that you haven't waved to or a neighbor that you haven't smiled to, this is the opportunity to do it, to build and promote community in a safe manner. So definitely walking meetings are helpful for not only the sense of community building, but also for your own personal stimulation. It's about 30% of creativity is increased in a walking meeting because you're actually getting more oxygen to the brain. So not only can it help you in terms of building community around you, it can actually help your productivity as well. So another tip is using natural light rather than overhead lighting when possible. And this is specifically to align your circadian rhythm. And just an example of how we all are natural beings and it's important to align with the natural patterns of the earth. When I was in college, I actually created an indoor garden for my mom. And I set it all up, it was beautiful, and the lights had a timer, and the timer would go on at 8 a.m. and it'd go off by 6 p.m. And I was very excited to come home 2 months later to see the progress of this garden. And when I went downstairs, everything had died. And I said to my mom, what happened? What happened to the garden? And she said, I was just really excited and I wanted to see the plants grow faster. So I left the lights on 24/7. And that is what ended up killing them. So we do have an on and off cycle, just like plants. So we open in the daytime, we close at night, just like a flower. And when you don't actually have access to natural light in the daytime, your circadian rhythm doesn't resonate that it's actually daytime. And so when you go to sleep at night, you actually have a harder time falling asleep. People who work outside or get access to natural light can sleep up to 40% better than people who don't have any access throughout the day. So we really encourage you to, if it's not too hot and you don't have your blinds blocking thermal heat, to open up the windows, open up the blinds to get access to that sunlight. Taking short breaks throughout the day to recharge, stretching, meditating, exercising, calling family and friends during this time is incredibly beneficial. I think it's easier for all of us to do the stretching, meditating, and exercising because we are in our own homes. I know personally, when I was in the office, I was not about to get up and stretch and meditate and exercise at my desk. Meditating at my desk was still a possibility, but it is far more easier to do it at home. One of the other tips for exercising when you take a short break is actually to mimic the natural stress relief of animals. So if you have a dog at home or you've ever seen a dog after it's done playing, it'll shake. If your dog is ever anxious or scared and when it's trying to relax, it'll shake. So shaking is a natural way of our bodies to actually stimulate nerve response and to calm us down. And so if I'm ever feeling too anxious, if things are just overwhelming, I turn off my email, I put on a song and I get up and dance. I just dance my heart away. And I do it right in my bedroom, right next to my desk, so that I can reset my body, get rid of the anxiety, and then I'm more productive throughout the day. And then, of course, we always encourage, if the coronavirus stress is really just overwhelming, Duke experts have actually provided quite a few resources that you can utilize. And there are additional resources as well. Healthy Duke for staff and Student Affairs, the Wellness Office, are definitely resources you should check out. And when I send this presentation, we have it hyperlinked, so you'll be able to click on them and access that information. Another tip for sustainability and wellness, these are actually tips from previous sustainability session attendees. So they have set up tips, so setting up a home office near workout equipment. So the same way that when I'm overwhelmed or stressed, I get up and dance, working out is another outlet for that as well. So just working out for even 2 minutes can help stimulate the responses your body needs to therapeutically calm down. Another great tip is growing something edible. I think we've all seen a drastic increase in gardening these past couple months. As people are home more, they're able to go out, take a break, do something in the garden, water the garden. And a great quote, if you haven't heard of Ron Finley, I'll send his TED Talk after this as well. gardening is the most therapeutic and defiant act you can do. And plus you get strawberries. And it's true. If you've ever grown something and had to harvest it out of your garden, and that fundamental paradigm shift has happened where you have looked at something that you created and you feel like a producer. So being a producer of your own goods is drastically different than the society we're normally accustomed to, and that's being a dependent consumer of goods. And so I really welcome you to explore these different paradigms during this very different time in our lives, and paradigms that enable you to feel confident and excited during these times. Another tip is getting a balance board. So if you have a standing desk or if you have an area in your office space where you can stand for a little bit, a balance board is actually really, really great at improving core strength and posture as I fix my shoulders, thinking about posture. So that is a great little at-home tip. And there's even videos about how to make your own. So I'll send a link for that as well. Again, walking the neighborhood and waving to neighbors. I know we may be physically distancing, but I can attest that socially, I have met so many people through this in a safe manner, even if it's saying hi on the porch, talking to my neighbors, or out when I'm out volunteering. When we say social distancing, it really is just physical distancing, and it doesn't have to be this paradigm that we participate in where we don't get to know our neighbors. So now is the time to talk to your neighbors. And then there's also the great example of gamifying or socializing exercise to build encouragement and competition. So we enjoy this kind of paradigm as well, specifically because we get to use the word accountability buddy. And having someone who's available to help you stay accountable can be really helpful. I know personally, I am not very good at holding myself accountable, but knowing that someone is going to ask me, did you do this? Are you doing that? Makes me kind of motivated to do it. And so here we are addressing the question of sustainability and human health. So now we get into the conversation about more broadly of community health. And so the question in the chat box is, how can the built environment facilitate the physical activity of citizens to promote healthier communities? And I'm just going to lay in an example. When we talk about walking in our neighborhoods during walking meetings, I think it's very crucial that we have safe places to walk, and that the street is wide and that the street is flat, and accessible for us to walk in a safe manner. So if you have other suggestions, we're actually going to take a quick break, and I would love for you for the next 60 seconds, if you have any ideas about how can your neighborhood facilitate physical activity, like what are the built environment recommendations that you would like to see in your community or that you have seen in other communities, I would really like to see it. Okay, so one suggestion is the better bike lane access and promotion of bike boulevards. And as you're thinking about this, I can talk about this a little bit more to help stimulate any thoughts if anyone has any more. But the number one reason we find that people do not participate in biking to work is if they live in an area where they can bike to work physically, the distance is not too far. If they don't have a safe route to take, they will not bike. If you do not feel safe on the road, we do not encourage people to bike to work. So having better bike lanes and the promotion of actual bike boulevards are actually separated spaces on the street that have a physical divider from the cars. And Vancouver is actually a great example of this. I was there for a sustainability conference, and they have a bike share program. And when we took the bikes out to see how this worked, the physical barrier was actually a planter of lavender. And so all throughout this street, it was this massive planter full of large lavender. And as I was riding my bike safely in this lane, I put my hand out and just had it run across the lavender and breathed it in. And it was one of the most relaxing bike rides I've ever had. Yet 5 feet over were massive trucks and big cars doing their thing on the road and going about their day. And so something that's related to biking and community health, when you are the mode of transportation, you encourage physical activity back into your daily habit. And so with cars, we see when you get into the car, you're using a form of energy, right? So this is not passive energy, this is active energy. So we have to use fuel in this machine to do the work for us to get us to a certain location. And when you are the source of power on the bike, that is a passive form of energy. That is something that is inherent through the design of your body to do the work in a system. And so I encourage you, when we send out this presentation, to take more of a deep look into the chart on the right. It will actually show how when a child is exposed to unsafe levels of pollution, they can face a lifetime of health impacts. And we mostly see this throughout the social justice paradigm. So in lower income communities, we do see that Black families and under-resourced minority groups do experience a larger impact of pollution. This can be due to the industry that is put next to their communities, where they have not had access to the time, because they have to work more to actually advocate against these industries going into their communities. If you remember from high school, the acronym is NIMBY, and that's not in my backyard. And not in my backyard is really a wealthier paradigm, because when wealthier people see an industry that they don't want in their community, they have the disposable, not only income, but they have the disposable time to advocate against that. And so that's why we don't see in wealthier communities these large pieces of industry that are in actually lower resourced communities. And so getting into that with that transition, we're going to talk about the intersection of the three pillars of sustainability. So when we talk about sustainability, this is a word that I feel is not a common word in our society. Often when I tell people what I do, that I work in sustainability, they say, that's cool. What is that? And it's really great that we can start talking about what are the paradigms of sustainability and how are we all related to it. So back in 1989, the United Nations in the Brundtland Report actually defined sustainable development for the first time. And generally, sustainability is defined as meeting the needs of present users without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And I was introduced to sustainability when I was 16. I had a baby brother born to me. And when Justin was put into my arms, I loved him so much in the moment that I felt it throughout my entire lifetime. And there was no way I could imagine life without this tiny little potato in my arms. And then I had to. In that moment, I actually lived my entire lifespan and thought beyond it for the first time in my life as a 16-year-old, because suddenly I had someone I cared about who would be here longer than I was. And I thought, what is this world going to be like when I'm no longer here and Justin is, and I'm not here to protect him? So that is how I became interested in sustainability. It also helped that this was 2007, and a month later I watched An Inconvenient Truth, and that introduced me to larger ecological paradigms as well. So there's an extended definition of sustainable practices to support ecological, human, and economic health. And so these three pillars, economy, environment, society, when they are all put together, it is the middle intersection that is sustainability. Sustainability does not exist as a one-off economic paradigm, environmental paradigm, or social paradigm. Just like the carbon offset project that I referenced very much at the beginning of this presentation, that they have projects that have a societal co-benefit, economical co-benefit, and environmental co-benefit, that's sustainability. So when you take into consideration all three, that is when we have a sustainable practice or design. And this is a good chart to help kind of dive into what does that really mean. So when we talk about environment, how does that relate to sustainability? We talk about clean air, clean water, climate change mitigation, adaptation, protecting ecosystems, and then environmental justice. So remember when I talked about that lower income communities do experience higher levels of pollution, that is environmental justice. When one wealthier community has access to cleaner air and a lower income community does not, that's environmental justice. The economy and sustainability. So we talk about sustainable infrastructure. We also reference the true cost of energy. And when we talk about the true cost of energy in our economy, the price of oil per gallon, if we actually reflected the true price of scarcity, the true price of the cost of extraction and refinement of that resource, that cost without lobbying, without decreasing the cost manufactured, that would cost between $18 and $20 roughly a gallon. Because we have subsidies that keep the cost of that energy artificially low. And so when we talk about a sustainable economy, we're really talking about the actual cost of a resource to reflect the reality of the availability of that resource and how much of that resource is actually left on the planet to consume. The cost of ecosystem services. So ecosystem services are reflected in things like wetlands to clean water, and the reality of forests to clean air. And if we took into consideration all the services that ecosystems provide to us for free and put a cost to it, it would come out to about $44 billion. And that's something I'll send more resources on after this webinar in the email. And then again, sustainable growth and economic justice. So when we have a community that has access to jobs and a community that does not have access to well-paying jobs, that's what we refer to as economic justice. And then to wrap it up, society and sustainability. So these society and sustainability really focuses on healthy communities as a whole. So do we have food security in these communities? Is there diversity in these communities, or are they traditionally communities that maybe have been redlined in the past? So we see a demographic of people in that community, or we see a class of people in that community. Safe housing and transportation are all social justice issues. And then when you combine all three pillars, in the middle is sustainability. So an actual example of that, the suggestion about better bike lanes. So the intersection for something like complete streets, which is a policy that townships can adopt. And whenever there's road construction, the town has to accommodate and think about all modes of transportation, not just the vehicle. And traditionally, our towns are designed around vehicles. That is how suburbia developed. And so we don't have safe streets for people. We don't have complete sidewalks for people to get from point A to point B. So when we talk about a policy like complete streets, the three pillars of sustainability are reflected. When you have more people on the road instead of in their cars, you reduce greenhouse gas and toxic air pollution emissions from tailpipes of vehicles. The health benefit is that you actually increase the physical activity of the citizens because they're using themselves as the mode of transportation. The economic benefit is really incredible. My grandfather was mayor of my town in New Jersey when I grew up, and after college, I actually advocated for a complete streets policy to be implemented because I had noticed that the hardware store, the local health store, all these mom and pop shops were actually closing. And so I talked to my grandfather and I said, what is the reason that people don't shop downtown? Is there a main reason for this? And he actually said, parking. And that was not what I was expecting at all. And so when he said parking, he explained that people would much rather drive 5 to 10 minutes to Walmart or Target to get a free parking spot they know will be available for them, rather than shop in the downtown where they may have to drive around for a little while and pay for a parking space. Even though the price of products in a mom and pop shop and Target and a Walmart, they're actually very price competitive. So it wasn't that Main Street shops were more expensive, it was just the convenience. So that was really, really shocking to me. So when you have more people in the downtown, you actually stimulate economic activity, and that saves people also money and car insurance costs if they're not in the car as often. How do sustainability intersections relate at Duke? So for the Duke Carbon Offset Initiative, a great example is actually the tree plantings that take place in their urban forestry protocol. So in partnership with Keep Durham Beautiful and the City of Durham, planting trees in lower resource communities that do have less tree canopy provide three benefits. The environmental benefit is that trees absorb greenhouse gases, and those greenhouse gases not only provide a health benefit of cleaner air, they provide mental health benefits. And those reduction of greenhouse gases actually help Duke towards its carbon neutrality goal. So we actually get to count that reduction towards our carbon neutrality goal while creating benefits in our local community. An economic benefit is actually that homes that have more trees in the area, they actually have higher property values. So what we're trying to do is actually pass along the economic benefit to residents of Durham who have not been provided that economic benefit in the past. So I definitely encourage you as we wrap up to learn more. The sustainability.duke.edu, that's our website. And we have a bunch of resources that you can participate in. We have green certifications. You can read our sustainability strategic plan. So we have progress reports every single year that we provide an update as to where we are on our path to carbon neutrality. And then you can also go over the campus metrics section. So this actually breaks down the different operating systems at Duke. So building, water, waste, energy, and more. And for you to really get in touch with what's happening on campus. And we've arrived to the question and answer section. So if you do have a question, you can please put your question into the chat. If you're unable to type at the moment, you are welcome to unmute yourself or request that I unmute you if you don't have that power to ask the question as well. Thank you, Kathy. And I'll provide more of the links to the products that I talked about and to more of the resources in an email after this webinar. It may be a day or two after, just because I want to make sure that I include the recording of this session so that if you wanted to send it along to others or revisit any part of this, you're able to as well. Thank you, Kimberly, so much. And you're also welcome to, I believe I have a keep in touch page. So if you don't have any questions right now, but you do find that you have a question later on in the week, I do encourage you to email sustainability@duke.edu. That is basically my email and our office's email. We will get that email and be able to respond to you. Even if we don't have the answer to that question, we will be able to find the person who might. And that's something I really enjoy about my position, is that my title is actually program coordinator. So I'm a coordinator at Duke. So being able to connect people to all these different offices, all these different staff members who are working very hard on sustainability is, I think, my most favorite part of the job. We also have my email personally put down at the bottom. We have our website and the email. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Actually really encourage you to follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We've had a wonderful intern all summer creating some beautiful graphics that will take a deeper dive into some sustainability metrics and issues on campus. Great. So if there are no other questions, you are welcome to sign off at this time. I will end the meeting momentarily. Oh, thank you, Kathy. Yes, I do love sustainability. My poor little brother who was born that stimulated this I talk to him about sustainability quite often. So thank you, Rose. Thank you, everyone who participated. I look forward to talking more at any time. You are welcome to reach out so we can talk more about sustainability. Thank you, everyone.